Welcome to the One Verse Devotional Podcast. My name is Matt McCarrick, and my goal is to help you grow closer to God through one verse every day. Now let's dive in. Welcome to the One Verse Devotional Podcast. It is Friday, and we are heading into the weekend. I got a question for you. If you could make just one request of God, what would it be? Let's pause for a second, let that kind of sink in for a little bit. What request, not what question you would ask him, but what request would you make of him? What would you ask of him? Something that he could do for you or something that you desire. If you had one desire that you could share with God, what would it be? A pretty big question, right? And yet that's exactly what we have in our one verse today, that David says that he has one thing that he asks of the Lord. And that's a pretty powerful statement. And I want to dive into this verse and see if it lines up with what you might say or what your answer would be. I'll give a little bit of a spoiler here. It's nowhere close what I would say. Okay. So don't feel bad if your answer is different, if you thought of something else, because David is David, right? He's the man after God's own heart. So this is a beautiful verse. I love this verse. But when we think about the fact that he starts it off saying, this one thing I ask from the Lord. Okay, well, man, what's that going to be? Man, we could ask God for so many things. And then he goes on and instantly I'm kind of like, oh yeah. That's why you're David and I'm not, because that's really powerful. That's really cool. So enough background talk or whatever. Let's get to it. It's Psalm 27, verse 4. And again, this is a Psalm of David. And he says, "One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple." What a beautiful verse. But like I said earlier, I got to tell you that probably when I said, hey, what's one thing that you would ask of God? Probably, spending every day in church for the rest of your life probably wasn't at the top of your list, right? And yet that's what he says. I want to dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. I want to be in the temple, right? Well, what does he mean by that? Is that really what he would ask of the Lord? Well, it goes a little deeper than that. David's request is simple. He wants to know God, and he wants God to know him. See, it's all about relationship. It's not really even about the house of the Lord. He's talking about the temple and the house of the Lord, but that's because that's where God dwelled in the Old Testament. That's where the presence of God was in the Holy of Holies. And so David is actually making a much deeper statement here. And he's saying, Lord, I want to be in your presence. I want to build a relationship with you. I want to know you, and I want you to know me. See, it can be easy to read this and think, oh, he just wants to worship God for the rest of his life. And there's a lot of truth in that. But if we look to the next verse, we're going to kind of creep into the next verse a little bit, just so you can see why. Because he gives us the answer. He says, for, in the next verse, in verse 5, for in the day of trouble, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon a rock. See, David actually has a motive here. He says, yes, I want to know God. I want him to know me. He wants to have that relationship. But then he goes on to say, hey, because I know that there's a day coming and it's going to be a day filled with trouble, and I'm going to need help, and I'm going to need God to be on my side. Let's just be honest. God's a really good person to have on your side, right? I want him in my corner. And David understood that. And so he said, I want to dwell in your house. I want to spend time with you. I want to grow closer to you. I want to know you. And God, I want you to know me. And I want you to be there for me in times of trouble. This was written thousands of years ago, literally. But I think that's a great thing for 2018. That our request would be, Lord, I want to know you, and I want you to know me. I hope that encourages you today. I hope that maybe gives you something to think about for the upcoming year. If you want other things to think about in the upcoming year, it's not too late to sign up for my free audio course. It's really just getting going. I think the first one is going out today, so you're not behind. It's a 5-day audio course called Jumpstart Your Year, and I'm going to share 5 verses that I think will really kind of set 2018 on the right path. You can go to oneversepodcast.com, sign up for that. It's totally free. And I would love to have you be a part of that. I'm going to email out some discussion questions. You can even hop into our Facebook group, the Lightbearer Community. We're going to be discussing those verses. It's going to be a great time. So if you want to do that, head over to oneversepodcast.com. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Peace.